How to make people fear disrespecting you. Have you ever noticed how some people are constantly ignored, interrupted, and taken for granted, while others command respect the moment they enter a room? The difference isn't louder voices, bigger muscles, or higher status. It's something far more powerful. Human nature is simple. People constantly test boundaries. They observe what you tolerate, what you defend, and what you're willing to sacrifice just to be liked. Every interaction becomes a silent negotiation of power. If you repeatedly accept disrespect, you quietly teach others that there is no price for crossing your boundaries. But the moment people realize that disrespect has consequences, that your time, attention, and presence are not freely available, the entire dynamic changes. Respect is rarely given because you ask for it. More often, it is earned because your actions make people think twice before underestimating you. In today's video, you'll discover the psychological principles behind commanding respect, setting unshakable boundaries, and developing a presence that makes others hesitate before treating you carelessly. Because in the end, the strongest form of power is not making people fear you. It's making them understand that disrespecting you is never worth the cost. Respect is rarely determined by titles, wealth, or appearance alone. It begins in the invisible world of perception, where people instinctively evaluate confidence, consistency, and personal boundaries. Every interaction becomes a quiet assessment of character. Without realizing it, people constantly ask themselves whether someone values their own time, opinions, and principles. The answers they find shape the level of respect they offer in return. Human beings are naturally wired to observe patterns of behavior. They notice who apologizes unnecessarily, who constantly seeks approval, who changes opinions to avoid conflict, and who stands firmly behind their values. These observations happen quickly and often without conscious thought. Before a single word carries weight, behavior has already communicated a message about confidence and self-worth. People also have a tendency to test limits. Sometimes these tests are subtle, like interrupting someone repeatedly during a conversation. Other times they appear as broken promises, dismissive jokes, or small acts of disrespect disguised as humor. These moments are rarely random. They reveal how others are measuring your willingness to protect your boundaries. Every response sends information about what will be tolerated in future interactions. One of the greatest misunderstandings is believing that kindness alone earns respect. Kindness is valuable, but kindness without boundaries often becomes permission for others to take advantage. There is an important difference between generosity and self-sacrifice. A person who consistently puts everyone else's comfort above their own eventually teaches others that their needs come last. Respect begins to fade whenever people believe there are no consequences for crossing personal limits. Confidence plays a major role in this psychological equation. Genuine confidence is not loud or dramatic. It does not rely on constant self-promotion or the need to dominate conversations. Instead, it appears through calm decisions, measured responses, and a willingness to remain true to personal values even when facing disagreement. People naturally trust those who demonstrate emotional stability because consistency signals strength. Another important aspect of respect is predictability. Individuals who constantly change their standards depending on the situation create uncertainty. One day they defend themselves, and the next they ignore obvious disrespect. This inconsistency encourages others to continue pushing boundaries because the outcome remains uncertain. On the other hand, someone who consistently responds according to clear principles becomes much harder to manipulate. Emotional reactions also influence how people are perceived. Losing control over every criticism, argument, or disagreement gives others the impression that they can easily influence your emotional state. Remaining composed does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending not to care. It means choosing thoughtful responses instead of impulsive reactions. Emotional discipline often communicates more strength than displays of anger. Another psychological principle is scarcity. People naturally place greater value on what is limited. The same principle applies to attention, approval, and availability. Someone who constantly seeks validation from everyone unintentionally reduces the value of their own presence. In contrast, individuals who are selective with their time and attention often become more respected because their approval feels earned rather than freely given. Body language quietly reinforces these perceptions. Eye contact, posture, deliberate movement, and controlled facial expressions communicate confidence before any words are spoken. Nervous habits such as avoiding eye contact, excessive fidgeting, or speaking too quickly may unintentionally signal uncertainty. Small physical cues often shape first impressions long before deeper conversations begin. The psychology of respect is also connected to self-perception. The way people think about themselves influences countless unconscious behaviors. Someone who secretly believes they deserve poor treatment may tolerate disrespect without realizing it. They may laugh at insults that genuinely hurt them, ignore broken commitments, or continuously excuse unacceptable behavior. Over time, others begin to mirror the value that person places on themselves. Social dynamics further reinforce this process. Groups naturally look for individuals who demonstrate emotional resilience, clear standards, and dependable behavior. Those who consistently protect their principles often become trusted voices because people know where they stand. In contrast, individuals who constantly compromise their values for acceptance frequently lose influence, not because they lack ability, but because inconsistency weakens credibility. Respect ultimately grows from repeated evidence rather than isolated moments. Every decision, every response, and every boundary contributes to the image others develop over time. People remember patterns far more than promises, and those patterns become the foundation upon which trust, influence, and lasting respect are built. Boundaries are one of the strongest signals of self-respect. They define what you will accept, what you will reject, and how you expect to be treated. Without clear boundaries, people are left to decide your limits for you, and many will naturally push those limits if they believe there will be no resistance. This is not always done with bad intentions. Often it is simply part of human nature. People observe what is permitted, adapt to it, and continue behaving in ways that produce no consequences. Many individuals believe that setting boundaries will make them seem rude, selfish, or difficult. As a result, they remain silent when someone interrupts them, disrespects their time, or repeatedly ignores their needs. They convince themselves that avoiding conflict is the mature choice. Over time, however, this silence creates a dangerous pattern. Every ignored act of disrespect quietly teaches others that crossing the line is acceptable. What begins as a small compromise often grows into a repeated expectation. Strong boundaries are not built through anger or aggression. They are established through clarity and consistency. A person who calmly says no when necessary often earns more respect than someone who says yes to everything out of fear of disappointing others. The ability to refuse unreasonable requests without guilt demonstrates confidence and emotional stability. It shows that your decisions are guided by principles rather than pressure. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must explain every boundary in great detail. Endless explanations often invite debate, negotiation, and attempts to change your mind. Clear communication is usually far more effective. A simple, respectful response delivered with confidence leaves little room for manipulation. The more comfortable you become with your decisions, the less you feel the need to seek approval for them. Time is one of the most valuable boundaries a person possesses. Every unnecessary interruption, broken promise, or repeated delay communicates how much others value your schedule. If people consistently arrive late without apology, expect immediate responses at all hours, or repeatedly cancel plans without consideration, they are revealing how they perceive your time. Protecting your schedule sends the message that your life has structure, priorities, and purpose. Emotional boundaries are equally important. Some people constantly project their frustrations, insecurities, or negativity onto those around them. Without emotional boundaries, it becomes easy to absorb problems that were never yours to carry. Protecting your emotional space means recognizing that not every argument deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves a response, and not every opinion deserves a place in your mind. Another essential boundary involves respect during conversations. Allowing others to repeatedly interrupt, mock, or dismiss your ideas gradually weakens your position within the relationship. Calmly finishing your thoughts, addressing disrespectful behavior directly, or choosing to leave an unproductive discussion demonstrates that respectful communication is not optional. These actions reinforce the expectation that meaningful conversations require mutual respect. Consistency gives boundaries their strength. Many people establish limits one day but abandon them the next because they fear upsetting someone. This inconsistency creates confusion. Others begin to believe that persistence will eventually break your resistance. In contrast, consistently enforcing your standards removes uncertainty. People quickly learn that your principles are dependable and not influenced by temporary pressure or emotional manipulation. Healthy boundaries also require accepting that not everyone will approve of them. Some individuals benefit from unlimited access to your time, energy, or attention. When those limits suddenly change, resistance is almost guaranteed. Complaints, guilt trips, or accusations of selfishness often appear when people lose privileges they once took for granted. Remaining calm during these moments is essential because discomfort does not automatically mean your boundary is unfair. Personal values serve as the foundation for strong boundaries. When you clearly understand what matters most, decisions become easier. You spend less time seeking permission from others and more time acting according to your own principles. This clarity reduces internal conflict and strengthens confidence because your actions align with your beliefs instead of constantly shifting to satisfy external expectations. Boundaries also influence the quality of your relationships. Healthy relationships grow stronger when both people understand and respect each other's limits. Mutual respect creates trust because expectations are clear. In contrast, relationships without boundaries often become filled with resentment, misunderstanding, and imbalance. One person continuously gives while the other continuously takes, creating frustration that eventually damages the connection. The ability to walk away is sometimes the strongest boundary of all. Remaining in environments where disrespect is constant communicates acceptance of that treatment. Choosing distance when necessary demonstrates that access to your presence is a privilege, not an entitlement. People often begin to value what they can no longer easily access, especially when they realize that respect is the price of maintaining the relationship. Every boundary you enforce shapes how others perceive you. Calm decisions, consistent actions, and unwavering standards communicate that your values are not available for negotiation. Over time, these repeated actions create a reputation for strength, reliability, and self-respect, making it clear that crossing your limits is never treated as something insignificant. Emotional control is one of the most underestimated forms of strength. Many people believe power belongs to the loudest voice, the quickest comeback, or the most aggressive reaction. In reality, the person who remains calm under pressure often holds the greatest advantage. Human nature is drawn toward emotional stability because it signals confidence, discipline, and self-mastery. When your emotions remain under your control, other people lose the ability to control you. Every difficult interaction is a psychological test. Someone may criticize you unfairly, provoke you with insults, or deliberately question your abilities. In those moments, the immediate emotional response is usually anger, frustration, or the desire to defend yourself. While these feelings are natural, acting on them impulsively often achieves exactly what the other person wants. Emotional reactions reveal vulnerabilities, and people quickly recognize which words or actions can influence your behavior. One of the oldest principles of influence is simple. Whoever controls your emotions controls your decisions. If another person can make you angry whenever they choose, they have discovered a powerful form of leverage. They no longer need physical strength or authority because your emotional response begins doing their work for them. Remaining composed removes that advantage and forces others to deal with someone they cannot easily manipulate. Calmness should never be mistaken for weakness. Many people confuse silence with surrender, but they are completely different. Silence can be a deliberate strategy. It creates uncertainty because people often expect immediate reactions. When those reactions never arrive, they are left questioning their own behavior instead of celebrating their success. A calm expression during conflict often communicates greater confidence than a lengthy argument. Emotionally disciplined individuals understand the difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is immediate and driven by impulse. A response is thoughtful and guided by purpose. The few seconds between these two choices often determine the outcome of an entire conversation. Taking time before speaking allows logic to replace emotion, reducing the chances of saying something that creates unnecessary problems later. People naturally respect those who remain steady during stressful situations. Whether facing criticism in the workplace, disagreements within relationships, or unexpected setbacks, emotional consistency creates trust. Others begin to see you as dependable because your behavior is not dictated by temporary moods. This reliability becomes part of your reputation, making your words carry greater weight over time. Anger itself is not the enemy. Anger is simply information. It signals that something important has been challenged, ignored, or violated. The real question is how that energy is used. Uncontrolled anger often leads to poor decisions, damaged relationships, and regret. Controlled anger, however, can become motivation for setting stronger boundaries, making better choices, and solving problems with clarity instead of chaos. Another important aspect of emotional control is resisting the need to prove yourself. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy arguing with those who have already decided not to understand them. They feel compelled to defend every opinion, answer every criticism, and respond to every insult. This constant need for validation places their emotional state in the hands of strangers. Confidence grows when you recognize that not every accusation deserves your attention, and not every disagreement requires your participation. Patience is closely connected to emotional discipline. People who seek immediate satisfaction often make impulsive choices because they want instant relief from uncomfortable emotions. Those who develop patience are able to tolerate temporary discomfort while waiting for better opportunities. They understand that emotional decisions made in moments of frustration rarely produce lasting success. Body language also reflects emotional control. Calm breathing, steady eye contact, relaxed posture, and deliberate movements communicate confidence even before a single word is spoken. In contrast, restless gestures, raised voices, and visible frustration reveal emotional instability. Observant people notice these signals quickly, often forming judgments long before the conversation has progressed. Emotional resilience is strengthened through repeated experience. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice self-control. Instead of viewing difficult people as obstacles, emotionally disciplined individuals often see them as tests of character. Each successful moment of restraint reinforces confidence, making future challenges easier to handle with the same level of composure. Another common mistake is allowing emotions to dictate long-term decisions. Temporary disappointment can cause someone to quit too soon. Short-term excitement may lead to reckless commitments. Fear can prevent opportunities from being explored, while pride may stop necessary apologies from being offered. Separating emotions from important decisions creates room for careful thinking, increasing the likelihood of better outcomes. People often remember how you behave during moments of pressure more than how you behave during peaceful times. Anyone can appear confident when life is comfortable. Character becomes visible when expectations are challenged, plans fall apart, or criticism becomes unavoidable. Remaining calm in those moments quietly communicates inner strength, discipline, and confidence without the need for dramatic displays or emotional outbursts, allowing your actions to demonstrate a level of self-mastery that words alone could never convincingly express. Words are powerful, but their value depends on how they are used. Many people believe that speaking more makes them appear more intelligent, more confident, or more influential. In reality, excessive talking often has the opposite effect. The more you speak without purpose, the easier it becomes for others to predict your thoughts, question your confidence, or dismiss your opinions. People who carry genuine influence rarely feel the need to fill every silence with unnecessary words. Silence has a unique psychological effect. It creates curiosity, encourages others to pay closer attention, and gives your words greater importance when you finally choose to speak. A person who constantly talks gives away every thought immediately, leaving little room for mystery or anticipation. Someone who speaks carefully and selectively, however, often commands greater attention because people instinctively assume that every statement has meaning. Many individuals talk excessively because they fear silence. They worry that quiet moments will make them appear awkward, uninformed, or uncomfortable. As a result, they begin explaining, justifying, and repeating themselves far more than necessary. Ironically, this habit often weakens their position. The more someone feels compelled to convince others through endless explanations, the more they appear uncertain about their own decisions. Confidence does not demand constant verbal proof. It allows a person to express an idea clearly, then remain comfortable allowing others to think about it. Strong communicators understand that clarity is more valuable than quantity. A few carefully chosen words often leave a stronger impression than long speeches filled with repetition. Every unnecessary sentence creates another opportunity for misunderstanding, contradiction, or doubt. Listening is one of the greatest advantages of speaking less. Most people are eager to express their own opinions, but spend very little time truly observing others. Those who listen carefully gather valuable information about personalities, motivations, fears, and intentions. They notice patterns in behavior, recognize hidden emotions, and understand what others reveal without realizing it. Information gained through listening often becomes more valuable than information shared through talking. People naturally reveal themselves over time. They speak about their ambitions, frustrations, insecurities, and desires if given enough space. Someone who interrupts constantly or dominates every conversation misses these opportunities. Remaining patient allows others to expose their thinking, making it easier to understand how they make decisions and what influences their behavior. Another advantage of speaking less is reducing emotional mistakes. During arguments or stressful situations, people often say things they later regret because they speak before thinking. Hurtful comments, unnecessary insults, or exaggerated promises frequently result from emotional reactions rather than careful judgment. Choosing silence for a moment creates space for reason to replace impulse, allowing responses that are more effective and more controlled. The habit of over-explaining is another common weakness. Some individuals believe every decision requires lengthy justification. They explain why they declined an invitation, why they changed their opinion, or why they established a boundary. These extended explanations often invite unnecessary debate because people begin searching for weaknesses in every reason provided. A simple, respectful statement delivered with confidence usually communicates far greater certainty than a detailed defense. Speaking with intention also means choosing the right moment. Timing often matters as much as the message itself. A wise observation delivered too early may be ignored, while the same words spoken at the right moment can completely change the direction of a conversation. Patient communicators understand that influence depends not only on what is said, but also on when it is said. Tone plays an equally important role. Calm, measured speech often communicates authority more effectively than loud or aggressive language. Raising your voice rarely strengthens your argument. It usually signals emotional frustration instead. A steady tone reflects confidence because it shows that your message does not depend on intimidation or emotional pressure to be heard. People tend to remember concise statements more easily than lengthy explanations. Memorable leaders, negotiators, and influential thinkers often express complex ideas through simple language. They avoid unnecessary words because every sentence has a clear purpose. This simplicity increases impact, making their messages easier to understand and more difficult to forget. Speaking less also protects your privacy. Not every plan, opinion, or personal goal needs to be shared immediately. Constantly revealing every intention gives others opportunities to criticize, discourage, or interfere before progress has been made. Keeping certain ambitions private allows your actions to speak before your words do. Results often create stronger impressions than promises ever could. Another benefit of measured speech is that it demonstrates emotional discipline. People who can remain silent when provoked show that they are not controlled by every comment or criticism. They understand that responding to every insult gives unnecessary importance to those who seek attention through conflict. Choosing not to engage can communicate confidence more effectively than attempting to win every argument. Speaking with purpose does not mean becoming distant or unfriendly. It means ensuring that your words reflect thought rather than impulse, quality rather than quantity, and confidence rather than insecurity. When every sentence carries intention, people begin to listen more carefully because they recognize that your voice is guided by clarity, discipline, and deliberate judgment, rather than the constant need to fill empty space with unnecessary conversation. Your presence is one of the most valuable assets you possess, yet many people give it away without realizing its worth. They become available at every moment, respond instantly to every request, and sacrifice their own priorities simply to avoid disappointing others. Over time, this constant accessibility reduces the value others place on their attention, time, and company. Human nature often appreciates what requires effort to earn and gradually overlooks what is offered without limits. Value is closely connected to scarcity. This principle exists in business, relationships, and everyday social interactions. When something is rare, people naturally perceive it as more important. The same psychological pattern applies to personal presence. Someone who is constantly available for every conversation, every favor, and every invitation unintentionally communicates that their time has little value. In contrast, individuals who carefully protect their schedule often create the impression that their attention must be earned. Being valuable does not mean becoming distant, arrogant, or intentionally difficult. It means recognizing that your time, energy, and focus are limited resources. Every hour spent pleasing people who do not respect you is an hour taken away from your own goals, relationships, and personal growth. Protecting those resources is not selfish. It is a demonstration of self-respect and clear priorities. Many people fall into the habit of seeking approval. They constantly check whether others are satisfied with them, agree with them, or appreciate their efforts. This behavior quietly shifts power away from themselves because their confidence becomes dependent on external validation. The more someone needs approval, the easier it becomes for others to influence their decisions. People who value their own presence first are less likely to compromise their principles simply to gain acceptance. Attention is another form of currency in modern life. Every conversation, message, notification, and social interaction competes for it. Those who give unlimited attention to everyone often discover that very little remains for what truly matters. Selective attention communicates discipline. It tells people that your focus cannot be demanded at any moment but must be respected like any other valuable resource. The ability to say no plays a significant role in preserving your value. Agreeing to every request may create temporary approval, but it often leads to exhaustion and resentment. Constant availability teaches others that your priorities can always be interrupted. A respectful refusal, when necessary, reminds people that your commitments matter. It also encourages them to appreciate the occasions when you do choose to give your time. Another important principle is avoiding the need to chase people. Relationships, friendships, and professional connections should involve mutual effort. When one person is always initiating conversations, making plans, offering help, or seeking attention while receiving very little in return, an unhealthy imbalance develops. Constant pursuit often reduces perceived value because it signals that access to the relationship matters far more to one side than the other. People naturally become curious about those who maintain healthy independence. Individuals who have meaningful goals, productive routines, and fulfilling lives outside of social approval create an atmosphere of quiet confidence. Their happiness does not depend entirely on the opinions of others. This independence often attracts respect because it demonstrates emotional stability and self-sufficiency. Your actions also determine how valuable your presence appears. Reliability, integrity, and consistency build trust over time. When people know your words match your actions, your presence becomes associated with credibility. Empty promises, frequent excuses, and unreliable behavior have the opposite effect. Respect grows when others recognize that your commitments carry real meaning. Digital communication has made constant availability seem normal. Many people feel pressure to reply immediately, remain active on every platform, and respond to every notification. While technology improves communication, it can also create unrealistic expectations. Delaying responses when appropriate, protecting uninterrupted time, and refusing to let every message dictate your schedule reinforce the idea that your attention is intentionally managed rather than freely distributed. Personal growth also increases your value. The more knowledge, discipline, confidence, and emotional intelligence you develop, the less you depend on external recognition. You become someone who contributes meaningful ideas, solves problems, and brings stability into different situations. People naturally appreciate those qualities because they create positive influence rather than unnecessary drama. Respect for your own presence is reflected in the environments you choose. Spending time with people who consistently ignore your boundaries, dismiss your contributions, or take your kindness for granted gradually weakens your sense of worth. Choosing relationships built on mutual appreciation sends a powerful message that your company is reserved for those who value it. Confidence becomes visible when your life is driven by purpose instead of constant availability. You begin making decisions based on long-term goals rather than temporary approval. Others recognize that your attention cannot be bought with flattery or demanded through pressure. They understand that your presence carries value because it is offered intentionally, supported by self-respect, disciplined choices, meaningful priorities, and a clear understanding that your time and energy are among the most important resources you will ever possess. One of the fastest ways to lose respect is to reward disrespect with continued access to your time, attention, and energy. Every relationship operates on patterns. People observe not only what you say, but also what you consistently tolerate. If someone repeatedly insults you, ignores your boundaries, breaks promises, or treats you as an afterthought while you continue responding the same way, they learn an important lesson. Their behavior carries no real consequences. Over time, disrespect becomes normal because your actions silently approved it. Human behavior is shaped by consequences. When respectful actions are appreciated and disrespectful actions are ignored, people naturally continue doing whatever benefits them. This principle exists in families, friendships, workplaces, and every social environment. It is not about punishment or revenge. It is about teaching others how they can and cannot expect to treat you through the consistency of your responses. Many people confuse forgiveness with unlimited tolerance. Forgiveness is a personal decision that allows you to let go of resentment. Tolerance, however, determines what behavior you continue allowing into your life. You can forgive someone without giving them repeated opportunities to disrespect you again. These are two completely different choices, and understanding the difference protects both your peace of mind and your self-respect. One common mistake is laughing at disrespect simply to avoid making others uncomfortable. Someone may disguise an insult as a joke, embarrass you in front of others, or repeatedly make comments that undermine your confidence. Instead of addressing the behavior, many people smile, remain silent, or pretend they are unaffected. While this may avoid temporary conflict, it often encourages future disrespect because no clear boundary was established. Disrespect is rarely limited to dramatic situations. It often appears through small, repeated behaviors. Constant interruptions during conversations, ignoring your opinions, repeatedly arriving late without apology, canceling commitments at the last minute, speaking to you with unnecessary sarcasm, or dismissing your concerns may seem insignificant when viewed individually. However, repeated small acts often reveal a larger pattern of how someone values the relationship. Responding to disrespect does not require aggression. Calmness is usually more effective than anger. Raising your voice, insulting someone in return, or allowing emotions to take control often shifts attention away from the original issue. A calm response focused on the behavior itself communicates confidence because it shows that your standards remain firm even during uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes the most powerful response is reducing your availability rather than increasing your arguments. People often expect endless debates after disrespectful behavior because they believe emotional reactions give them control. Quietly creating distance, limiting access, or refusing to continue unhealthy interactions often communicates your standards more clearly than prolonged confrontation. Actions frequently leave stronger impressions than repeated warnings. Another important principle is avoiding the desire to prove your worth to disrespectful people. Some individuals continually seek approval from those who consistently criticize or dismiss them. They work harder, explain themselves more, and make greater sacrifices hoping that respect will eventually appear. Unfortunately, people who deliberately withhold respect often become even more comfortable doing so when they realize someone is desperately seeking their validation. Self-respect requires accepting that not every relationship deserves unlimited effort. Some connections improve through honest communication and mutual understanding. Others remain unhealthy regardless of how patient, generous, or forgiving you become. Recognizing this difference prevents you from wasting emotional energy on situations that repeatedly damage your confidence. Consistency is essential when dealing with disrespect. If you ignore unacceptable behavior one day but react strongly the next, others receive mixed signals. They become uncertain about your standards and may continue testing your limits. Clear and predictable responses eliminate confusion. People quickly learn that your boundaries are stable and do not depend on temporary moods or changing circumstances. Respecting yourself also means paying attention to repeated patterns rather than isolated incidents. Everyone makes mistakes. A single misunderstanding does not necessarily define someone's character. However, repeated disrespect despite clear communication reveals intention more than accident. Patterns expose priorities, and consistent behavior often tells the truth more accurately than repeated apologies. Walking away from persistent disrespect is not a sign of weakness. It often requires greater courage than remaining in a harmful situation. Many people stay because they fear loneliness, rejection, or criticism from others. Yet protecting your dignity sometimes requires leaving environments where respect has disappeared. Choosing peace over constant conflict demonstrates maturity and emotional strength. People eventually understand what your actions repeatedly communicate. When they realize that disrespect leads to reduced access rather than unlimited second chances, they begin recognizing the value of treating you with consideration. Those who genuinely respect you will adjust their behavior because they value the relationship. Those who continue ignoring your standards reveal where you truly stand in their priorities, making it easier to distinguish sincere respect from empty words and temporary promises through consistent patterns of behavior rather than hopeful expectations.